Cliches. They come in many forms, such as the "it was all a dream" ending, to the cold open, put me to the homage, to the flashbacks, and of course, another name for these is tropes. And that's what this series is going to be about. Welcome to the pilot episode of the Trope Show. The show where I'm going to talk about tropes, obviously. And where better to start than the trope of franchises? They come in many different forms and sizes. You get book franchises, you get TV franchises and movie franchises and video game and toy franchises. And they can be as big or as small as you need them to be, and they can start out in any of these forms. Take, for example, the popular My Little Pony franchise that originally started out as a toy line. In the 1980s, known as My Pretty Pony, before then being spun off into the cartoon series in the 1980s, My Little Pony and Friends, and then taking off from there like a juggernaut, and now has the TV shows, the toy line itself, My Little Pony and Friends, My Little Pony Tales, Friendship is Magic, with the spin-off Equestria Girls line, the newest generation, which would be Generation 5, a new generation. And yes, movies for everything from the 1986 film to the new generation CGI animated series from Netflix. Well, film from Netflix. And most, or in fact all, of these My Little Pony shows have their own toy lines. The Barbie franchise is likewise started out as a series of dolls. Yes, a series of dolls, mainly aimed at the female demographic. But there was then spun off into films and TV shows, well, web series, you name it. Now, I'm going to give examples. Those are examples of toy lines that became TV shows. But for girls, yeah? What about boys' ones? Well, look no further than the Transformers. Started out as a line of toys, was then spun off into the Generation 1 cartoon. And from there, it took off into the franchise it is today. Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, that originally started out as a series of video games, but then became cartoon shows based on the video games. Then came toy lines. And then that developed into the movies we have today. And they're still making TV shows now. As for the games, well, but what about franchises that are nothing to do with video games or toys? But they have toys and video games for them anyway. What about the Indiana Jones franchise? Now, in 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark came out, and that spawned the franchise we're talking about here, the Indiana Jones franchise. From there, we had two more films in the original saga, The Temple of Doom and The Last Crusade. Then in 2008, we got The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and just this year, we have The Dial of Destiny. So there's 5 Indiana Jones films. Alongside that, there's a series of video games, each based on one of the films. There will be one for The Dial of Destiny, we know that. Then there's Lego Indiana Jones. There's a TV series, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which is about him from about the age of 12 to the age of 21. And yes, there were action figures. And we also have Star Wars. A major franchise is Star Wars. Started in 1977 with the release of the original film. Then became the franchise it is today, with sequels to the original in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. There was also a holiday special in 1978. We don't talk about that. There were, of course, video games based on these 3 films. There was a prequel trilogy between 1999 and 2005 that gave you Darth Vader's backstory. Most of it was heavily political, so we don't talk about that. Because one thing you don't want to hear about when you're watching a Star Wars film is politics. That's a big no-no. And yes, there were video games based on those. Even Lego Star Wars 1 and 2, each based on one of the trilogies. There were some Star Wars TV shows as well. Animated Clone Wars series, 2D animated. There was a droid series and an Ewoks one. Then there was the CGI Clone Wars film, which was a pilot to the TV series of the same name, which ran for 7 seasons in the end. Then we had the Disney Plus mini-series of Andor and Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's getting a 2nd season, by the way. Then we have some Lego Star Wars movies, like the Freemaker Chronicles. And the sequel trilogy from 2015 to 2021, or 2015 to 2019 actually, consisting of 3 films that I know not a lot of you liked. Of course, there were action figures that comes in with it. There were comic books. Now, the Wizarding World franchise is one of my favourites. That actually starts in 1997 with the release of the book Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. And from there, it was spun off into a juggernaut of a franchise. It's all created by J.K. Rowling and Warner Brothers. There were 6 sequels to the books, and in 2001, the book started getting adapted for film. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was released on the 16th of November 2001 as a film. And like the books lasting 10 years, the films were made over a 10-year period. Also within that, we get video games and action figures, of course. A stage play, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I hope that's the last time I had to mention that curse. The Fantastic Beasts films, which were going to be a pentology, but because of the failure of the 3rd film, is now a trilogy. The last 2 films have been cancelled. But recently, it has been announced and greenlit that a 10-year TV series project for the Harry Potter series, rebooted as a Max original series, retelling the story of the 7 books in a more faithful way. There may be some scenes that weren't in the books added to the series as well for extra context and backstory. And if that's successful, which it should be, they may do some spin-offs. Now, I would talk about some other major franchises. There were video games of Harry Potter, there still are some coming out, with the most recent one being Hogwarts Legacy. Now, I'm gonna stop talking about major film franchises now and talk about a couple of franchise-related tropes. Now, I know I talked about this one in the naming conventions episode, but the trope of franchise-driven retitling, if I didn't talk about that there, I'll talk about it now. This is when a film and a series might be retitled to fit the rest of the franchise, such as the case with Star Wars from 1977, being renamed Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope in 1997, to fit the rest of the franchise it's a part of. Raiders of the Lost Ark was renamed Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark to fit the rest of that franchise's titling. And I know there will be more examples of that, but those are the 2 big examples. The other subtrope I want to talk about is the ridiculous future sequelization. Now, this is when another work of fiction would come along and make up a fictional sequel many installments down the line to a product or a film, such as Friday the 13th, part 1649. This is mentioned in Red Dwarf. Now, of course, it's ludicrous to actually think there'd be that many Friday the 13th films in reality, because there are not. That I'm happy to report. That'd be too many films to try and watch. And then you get such as the likes of Kindergarten Cop 23. We know there are only two of those. And Rocky 23, was it? Rocky 5000. Now, this all stemmed from a joke in Back to the Future Part 2 with a cinema marquee for Jaws 19. Now, there were 4 Jaws films. They never made 15 more by 2015. So, but that's where the idea of ridiculous future serial sequelization spawned. Alien Nation is built upon jokes of this sort. One thing that I actually don't see being too ridiculous, though, is the Final Fantasy series. Now, they got ridiculous with the numbering here and took it up to like 50-something games. But I wouldn't be surprised if they kept making them that far in real life. So, it's a popular series of games after all. And then in the Angry Video Game Nerds Mega Man episode, there's a joke suggesting that by the time the episode was airing on YouTube, that there would be up to Mega Man X20. So, now I've even done this myself in old animations set in like the 2030s and had films listed such as The Land Before Time 23, James Bond 35, and such. So yes, I've done this myself. Although there aren't 23 Land Before Times, there are only 14, but there's still a large number of those films. And there are 25 official James Bond films. Okay. So what are they going to do next then? You know, all these major movie companies. Are they going to come out with up to Toy Story 15? Star Wars 27? Indiana Jones 9? Scream 25? Or Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2000? You see how ridiculous that sounded? The Simpsons have even made fun of this sort of thing in one of their couch gags, suggesting that at some point, if the series continued, there would be over 30,000 episodes. Wouldn't put it past them, but I don't think the creators are going to live that long, so we don't need to worry. Okay. We're going to talk no more about franchises here. I know there are loads I've missed out, but I just wanted to give you the basic overview of those and then talk about a couple of subtropes, which I have done. So the next tropes I'm going to give you examples of will be okay. I don't think I can decide which ones to go for next, so it'll be a surprise. So until then, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and have a magical time.